guys, welcome back to another Doom and Folds podcast. We got my brother Twitch. Today we're talking about the color red in CDH. What's up, Twitch? How you doing?
How's it going, man?
Good, man. Good. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good pod post ban. I feel like red is a hot topic. I feel like a lot of people jumped at Tim Thrasios, did this and did that. And, Dockside got banned. So we're gonna kind of talk about why still play red and why red is still so strong, which I think it still is. I think people are insane. Blue Farm's still a top 3 deck for sure. But let's get into it. Twitch, you've been playing Magic since pretty much the beginning. Let's talk about kind of the history of red and then how it translates into CDH.
Well, in the beginning, like, most of the red decks that were being played were usually either a combo deck that involved fireballing somebody in some cheaty manner, or either casting Channel, or using the Dwarven lands, Urza land, something like that. Once Visions came out, it changed a lot, because at that time we had Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Incinerate, but then we got Fire Blast, which really opened up the gates. Like, so a lot of people were like almost creatureless, playing just a high-end burn deck to try to do 20 points of damage to you before you get a chance to actually play a spell. Ignoring all the creature spells you're playing, your Sarah Angels, your Juzoms, any of that stuff's not a big deal. It's, let's see if I can reduce you to 0 quickly.
Yeah. And I think,
And
like, nowadays there's still red deck wins, like in Standard and Modern.
Well, but that was way after the fact. I'm talking about, like, Visions, remember, came out in 96?
Yeah.
97? But then after that, when Tempest came out, is when we started seeing Sly, which is something closer to the modern red decks you see nowadays. It has, like, down low creatures like Jackal-Pup, Ironclaw Orcs, Curse Scroll to finish up that little bit of damage, because they found that the incremental damage they can do throughout the game, what makes it to where the finisher is just so much more consistent. Because if you Lightning Bolt Fire Blast somebody, that's half their life total.
Yeah.
So if you're able to do just a little bit before then, you'll be fine.
So, like, back in the day, or say 20 years ago, was spells stronger, like, than creatures? Because I feel like creatures nowadays where it's at. It's a creature meta for sure.
It's not that the spells was stronger than the creatures. We've come to a point to where how power creep works, the creatures you have to get a better creature the entire time. Like, it used to be the end all be all was like a 5-mana 4/4 vigilance flyer, and now that's just like not even a part of it. Then we had the at one point Sea Drake was like a real insane card, and that was a 3-mana 4/3 flyer. Nether Spirit was like the GOAT. Like, you had these decks that was the kill mech, was a 2/2, that if he's the only creature in your graveyard, he comes back into play. And you're just attacking slowly or blocking throughout the game.
Shivan Dragon, like, one of the
that's way
famous,
back when. But that's Shivan in my play groups wasn't really played at all. Like, really? We were playing, like, we were a little past that at that point. Like, there was so many Terrors and Swords to Plowshares in everybody's deck. Like, Wrath of Gods a lot. Armageddon was very popular. Because I didn't really start playing with, like, consistent groups until right after Ice Age came out. So we were playing, like, Thawing Glaciers, cards like Keldroin Outpost, these really slow, grindy cards at such a higher power level than what we were before that point. Like, I didn't really play the Royal Assassin or Shivan, because when I was playing Magic at that era, nobody had those cards around me. Like, or if they had one, they had one.
Yeah, there was there was no TCG player. Yeah.
Like, I got you. But I was playing, like, very quickly with people with power and, like, the real cards, and I think that changed a lot of what I was looking at. Like, when I first saw Wheel of Fortune, was probably the first red card that I thought, wow, this card is too strong. But at the same time, I had Wheel and Time Twister in my deck. Like, so I had the option for both, and I just thought that as long as I keep wheeling, I had the Time Twister to give me another chance to keep going.
You're just playing 4 Time Twisters in your deck.
No, it was restricted real early.
Oh, was it?
Like, by the time I was playing, I had a Time Twister. It was already, you can only play one.
Yeah.
The shop I played at was we played Type 1, which was you could have the restricted cards.
You have anything?
We changed it over to 1.5, but it was like a riot. Like, people thought
really?
It was a huge deal. Yeah. But then Extended got real popular, and we started playing a lot of that because one of our local guys did really well at a PTQ,
Mm.
and he just got us all on the format. Like he got us playing Counter Sliver. Uh, I played a lot of Panza and stuff like that. And Panza's a mono red deck actually.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, like so.
It's just funny. That's 25 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago. Just it's like everything's changed, but nothing's changed. Let's talk
Yeah,
about Lightning Bolt for a second. Like, I still think Lightning Bolt's really good. I'll throw it in certain CDH decks. Like, how has that card changed Magic forever, right?
well, and I think that that shows how the design space works.
Yeah.
We can have these cards and formats. Like there was a point when Shock got printed,
Hmm.
which is just 2 damage to target creature or player,
Hmm.
and that was to replace Lightning Bolt because Lightning Bolt was too strong.
Wow.
And now, as the power creep happened and creatures got better,
Hmm. Hmm.
Shock is bad. It doesn't do enough. We need a little
Correct.
more. Like,
Right.
and so that's when we got cards like Magma Jet and these cards that if it's a shock, it has to do something else. Pillar of Flame,
Sudden
uh,
shock. Split second
Sudden
shock.
Shock, yeah, like those
Yeah.
kind of things. Like where before, like you just couldn't do 2 damage because it didn't get you anywhere. Like the
Hmm.
creatures just got too big for those kind of spells,
Hmm.
and that's when, like at one point, Lightning Bolt was unheard of to be back in Standard,
Hmm.
and then it was like, well, it's not a big deal. I won't even first pick this in a draft. Like it's not that big a deal.
Really?
Whereas if you look at the other 4 cards from that cycle, Dark Ritual, Ancestral Recall, Healing Salve, and Giant Growth,
Giant growth. Yeah.
like Lightning Bolt affected more formats than all 4 of the other
Well,
cards.
Dark Ritual, right?
Mm,
Maybe.
I
Well,
bet if you did the math, you'd see a lot more Lightning Bolts than Dark Rituals once you
okay.
actually look at over a long period of time.
Right, right, right. I got you.
Because the Dark Ritual decks have a linear strategy and are going to do one thing.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
red white deck's playing Lightning Bolt. The blue red deck's playing Lightning
Red
Bolt. The mono red
black.
deck's playing Lightning Bolt. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
red black deck's not playing Dark Ritual. Like it's
Right.
just not how it works.
Well, in CDH, I feel like it's opposite. I feel like CDH, even my 5 color Nagila deck, I'm on Dark Ritual. Right.
And you say that, are you not on Lightning Bolt in that deck?
No, no. Mm.
And you don't see any reason to put a Lightning Bolt in that
No, it's just
deck.
I put Lightning Bolt in the decks that like can use it more than just removal. Like the Eternal Witness, Displacer Kitten, loops, like when you can do multiple things, like with because there's like deflecting SWAT and there's Deadly Rollicks right nowadays, but generally though Lightning Bolt is still good in low color red decks for sure in CDH.
I think that in CDH specifically, people are sleeping on how powerful the cards like Lightning Bolt, Abrade, um, like those spells that are these small low to the ground removal spells, even Swords
Yeah,
Plowshare Path to Exile.
yeah.
And that's why some of these decks get to just get away with shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Oh
I,
yeah.
that would probably be the thing that would get me to stop playing Magda in CDH if more people were playing Lightning Bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Like
No, you're right.
and
You're 100.
look
percent
at Kennen. Look at the top decks and how many of them are susceptible to a well-timed Lightning Bolt. Like,
Sisay,
sure, it
Kennen.
doesn't do anything to Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consult,
Right, and that's why
but
people
do
don't
we
really
have
play
to
it.
do anything to those? Like, we have to kill Devoted Druids. We have
Mm-hmm.
to kill all these other things to stop these other problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that people just got too used to this super light removal format that
Mm-hmm.
we've had for the past 2 years, 3 years, ever since, I'd honestly say since Dockside Spinning. Like, we've had, like,
Yeah.
why am I playing creatures that aren't, I can't animate dead them, or I can't loop them, and stuff like that. And it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
we're at a point to where it's like, no, I play creatures because they're just pure value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, just look at the top
Like no bad
five
cards.
commanders. Yeah,
Yeah.
like why? Like, can look at how often if you lightning bolt a partner commander, they have to think about counterspelling it
Yeah, like
because
Temna.
otherwise you just shut off their counterspell.
Right.
Like, well, any of them, the black red guy, the blue
Mm-hmm.
blue green guy, like all the ones that are
Thrasios.
lightning bolt, even Rocksai. And Rock is like, a
Rograg.
0 mana card. Yeah, Rogak, sorry. If
Yep.
you just fucking hit him with the bolt and it well timed, you just can blow that deck out of the water
Yeah. Well,
because
yeah.
it's so important to him.
They'll just use their free Fierce Guard on that instead
Yeah,
of Necro holding a Fierce Guard up. Yeah.
yeah.
100%. 100%. No, I agree. I don't. I hate to have a slight tangent, but just talking about it, like removal in CDH, I want to, before I talk, I'm doing a top 10 card before I talk about that. I kind of want to talk about this is, people don't play enough removal, but how good is red at removal? I feel like it's underrated, but you're saying off air that it's not the best removal.
I think the problem with a lot of the red removal spells are you have to use them. Like a
Mm,
card like a Braid, a card like Lightning Bolt, you need to hit the thing that's a problem now and not a problem later.
mm,
Whereas a card like Swords of the Plowshare, Path to Exile, Dismember, you
mm.
can hold it up till there's a breakthrough point.
Right,
Like
right. You have to swords the devoted druid or they win. You can't
yeah,
just
you have
remove
to
it. You
bolt.
gotta swords it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like and there's other small like things. The biggest thing I was talking about is like cards like Limbala and Talion.
Mm,
Because we're in a slower format, these cards can actually fit into play now.
mm-hmm.
And those
100%.
cards are just so good against those decks that have Lightning Bolt, like that are trying to attack people. Whereas if they just Path to Exile to get it out of the way, and one of the other, like, or even uh, blue probably has the best removal spells just because you have Chain of Vapor and the Fish, and some people playing the
Flood Maw.
reality or whatever,
Yeah. Reality shift.
like yeah, reality shift.
Yeah.
And those kind of cards are super detrimental to like a board state. Whereas my lightning bolt can kill a creature, whereas these cards can triple dip and do other things.
Right. Like obviously you're on Magda, right? The Magda removal is you're on so much removal because it's like the oppos and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Well,
But
it's not even that.
every
Like the
card could.
the cards that if you look at the removal in the Magda list, it
Hmm.
all has double duty.
That's what I
Like
was
it's
saying.
not that
Yeah.
I'm trying to kill Oppo. It's like the split second siege smashing.
Hmm.
Like that's to stop the basalt monoliths. That's to keep my guy alive against Orcish Bowmaster.
Hmm.
Bottle Cap Blast is a combo piece to set me up to go to the future.
Oh God.
Stoke the Flames taps my creatures without me having an outlet out. Like
Yep.
so, Lightning Bolt is very linear with what it does, whereas all these other cards have double duty and they're doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Hmm. Are you on
Whereas
Lightning Bolt?
I am not currently. No, I'm playing Galvanic Blast. It's basically the same
Mhm.
thing.
I like it because of Draenus. If you're on a
Yeah,
deck that's commander centric,
yeah. Well,
but
I same thing with Galvanic Blast. Galvanic Blast kills it just as easy.
does it? I thought it's sorcery
It's
speed. No.
it's instant
Hmm.
and
Okay.
does 4.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I got you. So is that kind of like the lightning bolt effects? Is that kind of like modern day what you were saying before about the creatures nowadays compared to back in the day? Is there just better removal now in the lightning bolt in today's economy?
There's not better removal, like at all. Like if you look at the last modern or pioneer format, there's a lot of 2 mana removal spells people are playing, and the red decks just don't really care. Like it's they're playing Lightning Helix and Lightning Bolt because the burn deck's doing it better than the decks that are trying to just kill off creatures.
Mm.
Whereas when you look at these other decks, like a card like oh man, Hullbreaker Horror
Mm-hmm.
or
Side
like
spell.
we have these giant creatures that
Mm-hmm.
you have
Consecrated
to double,
Sphinx.
triple bolt or something like that. Like, well, Consecrated Sphinx not really played in the constructed formats.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
Yeah, like it's and you can't just have a card like Lightning Bolt that's sitting there to hope to kill something against a deck that you're going to have to sideboard them out because it's just not enough good targets for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the creatures are either bigger or they net advantage beforehand. Like Ragavan's a great example. Like I can just dash in a Ragavan under a lightning bolt, get an extra card, and if they now have to hold up the lightning bolt to kill my Ragavan when I dash it in, and we just play a different game.
Mm-hmm. Well, in those formats, you have four
Yeah,
Ragavans,
yeah.
right?
Well, we have 4 lightning bolts,
Yeah, true. True that. True
and
that.
sometimes they're right next to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about it. I got a little, I got a mini top 10 list, what I think the red cards are, and then I want you to shit on them or agree with them or kind of get your take on them. But my honorable mention is Rograk. I really think, I don't think Rogsai is a top deck anymore, but it's definitely a top 10 deck. But Rog Thrasios is doing a lot of work and a lot of Hullbreaker decks with Rograk. Because it's like Soul Ring, Rograk, Infinite Mana, Thrasios, I win. And I feel like Rograk is a broken commander. It's just a 0 mana. Now I have red, right? What do you think about?
Rogak actually made my top red commanders, but he didn't make
Okay.
my top 10 list because
Okay.
uh, he's the way for the partners to open up to play. How's it going?
How's it going?
he he's a way that they opened up partners for certain characters like Sithis, like
Yeah.
being that
Yeah.
like you just get these extra color combinations, and because of the cards like culling Ritual and
Mm-hmm.
Desperate Ritual. But obviously, considering Rogak a red card is kind of odd because it's pretty rare that it's going to be in that red deck, except that one sweet Planeswalker deck.
Right, right. Yeah, that's why it's my honorable mention. But it's also in some like I see some. I'm on Najila right now, and it's on some
Mm,
Najila decks. Just
yeah.
because it's a 0 mana warrior that makes
Well, you
warriors.
play it in
I,
Winota.
Winota, right, right. That's why
Yeah.
it's my honorable mention. But I agree. I didn't really make a top 5, top 10 red commander.
Mm.
I just think Magna Godo and then
Well,
everybody else.
you get to about three, like, and you're like, oh, that's it.
Right, right,
Until you start talking about gold commanders.
right, right. Yeah, my number 10 is Simeon Spirit Guide. I just think it's too good not to talk about it. Simeon Elvish Spirit Guide, which I think Simeon Spirit Guide's better. It's just you can't interact with it. Like if you have someone has a wheel on the stack or a post ad nos, you look for Simeon Spirit Guide. In my
Well,
opinion.
I think that Simeon Spirit Guide he suffers the same thing that Lotus Petal does, where you can only have so many of those effects in your deck.
Right.
And I think Simeon Spirit Guide people cut a lot earlier than they probably should.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I think Simeon's
most
better
of
than
the
Lotus Petal
time,
in red.
well, in like very low color decks, but at the same time, like what if you're playing Mox Opal?
Mm.
Now
Mm-hmm.
I need a card like Lotus Petal, but if somebody no rods me, like my Simeon Spirit Guide doesn't do anything, like or my Lotus Petal doesn't do anything my Simeon Spirit Guide does. So it's like two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there are deck lists that can play both, but I think a lot of them end up playing just whichever they prefer because
Mm-hmm.
I can give you in a vacuum a list of like 10 reasons to play one and 10 reasons to play the other that don't
Right.
overlap. Like,
Right.
but any deck, I think any deck that wants one should probably be trying to play both, or they don't
100.
want the one.
100%. In my Najila deck, I'm on Simeon and Elvish Spirit Guide just because I put Adnals back in, and those
Mm.
cards are just way too strong not to because it's trying to find that colored mana like in
Yeah, and
breed.
it's also if you have pyrokinesis or something, like having another red card in your deck is relevant.
Yeah, 100%. It's great for Gemstone Caverns and Chromoxes. Like it does a lot of things for sure. My number nine's I'm glad you said it earlier. Wheel of Fortune. It's a little low right now because I feel like Orcish Bowmaster is probably a top 3, top 4 card. But Wheel of Fortune has just always been so insane to me. Like you talked about it earlier 25 years ago, how insane Wheel of Fortune is. I don't like the idea of giving my opponents 21 cards, but like obviously you're in red, so like it fuels the fuck out of Breach. Or in Rock side, turn one Wheel of Fortune, people freak out, right? So what do you think about Wheel of Fortune in CDH
Well,
nowadays?
I think you actually skipped over something that I'm actually on the opposite side of the opinion for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because of cards like Bowmaster, Wheel of Fortune's better. Because sure, in the mono red deck, you're worried about somebody else bowmastering,
Mm-hmm.
but because of what bowmaster can do, like a Wheel of Fortune should not just be overlooked.
For
Like it's
offense,
just
you
so
mean?
yeah. Well, and you've seen my deck kill off bowmasters and have a bowmaster in play.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, and if I have that same deck playing wheels and stuff like that, like it's just all right. I guess I kill you off and I kill all your creatures off and stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Like you get to choose when you play your sorceries. You don't have to play them. Like so,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that
No, I agree. Bowmaster's Wheel has won me more games than not. Like in my
yeah.
Grixis Tevis deck, that's my favorite. My favorite win line is Wheel Notion Thief or Wheel Orcish. So
And
now
also, yeah,
I hit you. I have a 21-21, right, and I have a fresh grip, right.
and it can also fight you out of a mulligan game. That you actually put yourself in a bad spot because you didn't have a choice,
Mm.
and you just wheel on turn one, turn two, so now everybody's on the same playing field.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and I think that it did make my top 10, and I think it's because it makes a lot of things possible that wouldn't be possible with another card. You couldn't. It's not a replaceable card. There's a lot of cards when you look at
Yeah.
like any deck, you're like, well, this could be this could be this, and
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those cards just can't be replaced.
Right, right. Yeah,
Like it's either you want it or you don't.
I was gonna say that, especially in red. Like I feel Magna doesn't want it, but that's like the only red deck that doesn't want it. Like
Yeah,
low color red. Like
and it's
Godo
funny because
loves it.
Magda has all the signs to want it. Like they're
Right, right.
playing all their low drop cards out. They're going hellbent. They're doing this, but it's like
Mm.
I'd much rather just wait. And
Right.
that's the problem with wheel. Wheel forces the game to start. Like once a wheel of fortune goes, like the game is now going to be ended by the next turn cycle.
Mm. And how many times have you been in a slow game or we're just doing this, we're doing that, it's kind of whatever. Someone puts a wheel in the stack and someone's like, "Oh shit, now I'm in the game." Like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, now it just turned the game sideways." And that's
And
I
a
like
lot of
that.
times, the person put the wheel in the stack shouldn't have put the wheel in the stack in the first place.
Right. No, I
Like
agree. I agree.
they're just making like
Two guys are out of the
from
game, you put a wheel in the stack. It's like, "What? All right, cool."
well, or one guy's been mana screwed the whole time, and you just let him get away with it.
Right.
You wheel into him like fixing his problem, and now
Right.
there's a reason he kept that hand that
Yeah.
was shy on lands or shy on whatever it
Right.
is.
He kept a turn one fish. We didn't feed it. He lets it die. He
Yeah,
doesn't do anything all game. And then you give him a wheel. It's like,
yeah.
no, don't do that. Yeah, I agree. Since you have a top 10, did you want to kind of go back and forth?
I can. Yeah, I can.
What's your
Well, we
10?
already canceled out Wheel of Fortune, so we can just.
Yeah.
My number. Should I go bottom or top?
I'm going bottom to up.
Okay. I'd say Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon.
Okay, that's my number 7.
Yeah.
I think it's higher
Um.
right now because post ban. It's just so insane against these greedy 4 mana bases.
Well, we're also getting more and more soul lands. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
more ways to put them into play on turn one, turn two,
Yeah.
and that's those games that are like you get to choose how the game goes from that point. Like, or they fight for it, and you just discard 2 cards out of their hands. Like, the only thing that I think is insane is there's a lot of people that counter or remove Blood Moon when
Mhm.
it's not affecting them as much as the other people at the table.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's a detriment to the card because people just think that, oh, it's Blood Moon, it's Magus Moon, we have to kill this right now, or else we can't play this game. And it's like, well, you can. You just got to play more fair, like,
Right. Right.
and
You have to play on curve.
yeah. And I think a lot of people lose themselves the pod off
Mhm.
the idea that I play a Blood Moon.
Yeah. And I think also as well, like especially from a mono red player, there's some times where you don't play the Blood Moon because if you don't have interaction and that guy's run away with the game, you playing the Blood Moon is going to put those guys out of the game, and you don't want them
Yeah,
out of the game because they have interaction. I feel like a lot of people, oh, Blood Moon. It's like you shouldn't have played Blood Moon right now. There's
yeah.
certain times to play it.
Well, that and a lot of times, like I think that if if one guy's getting king maked by you playing Blood Moon, you probably had a different thing you were supposed to do in that situation.
Right. Yeah.
Like, because there's very few decks that aren't getting affected by Blood Moon because it should slow them down. Maybe not as much as Godfarrow's statue, but it's pretty similar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, have you ever seen somebody easily cast Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation with Blood Moon out? Like, that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of colored ticks.
Oh,
Like,
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they don't. They don't.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if I have Blood Moon, even though these other guys get shut out of the game, it's gonna make this guy's game a lot harder. Like, so I should have
Yeah.
stuff up to stop them if I'm playing my Blood Moon. You should choose when you play your cards.
No, 100%.
Like,
Especially
yeah,
sorcery cards like that. And
yeah.
then,
And
we're
like I
just
said, most people just lose the game to thinking Blood Moon's a problem.
right. Well, I think that's any stack piece. And that's kind of why, like, Boromir and Lavinia aren't played anymore because it takes people out for free interaction. But I think Vexing Bauble is one of the best cards ever printed for CDH because you could choose when to crack it. You could politic
Yeah,
and be like, oh, do you have free interaction? He has a Thoracle on the stack. I'll
yeah,
crack it now, right? With Lavinia, you're just, sorry, guys. You could have stopped him, but I can't. With Blood Moon, especially the lower, like Magda, like 90% of the time you're playing your Blood Moon. Like, because your
yeah.
deck's slower, you're doing your thing. But if you're in a 2-3 color deck where it's, there's a red blue deck right now with combat damage, and sometimes you don't want to do your Blood Moon. Sometimes you're doing other things. It's on back to basics, Magus of the Moon, Blood Moon, but sometimes you don't want to do that because you're doing other things, and that's fine. Like you said,
Mm,
you don't have to play it just because it's in your hand.
mm.
But Blood Moon is fucking insane. My number 8, I have a Flare Duplication. I feel like they made Roxai way better, and then like every like low color red deck wants it. It's just a free demonic tour, free Adnaz. It's just so insane.
I don't think it's as free as you think. Like, I see in a lot
Jason.
of situations,
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear you because I use my headset.
Mm.
In a lot of situations, you have these opportunities and these options
Yeah.
that you putting a card in your graveyard and then putting another card in your graveyard to get an effect that matches what they're doing. Like, am I getting a better Adnaz? Am I doing something like if I'm playing Rogak? Yes, but
Right. Right.
Rogak I think is not the example of why Flare Duplication would like. It didn't make my list obviously, but
Mm.
I'm very low on Flare
Really? Even in Magda?
because even definitely Magda. I think anybody playing Flare in Magda is probably making a mistake.
Mm. Okay.
Um, every creature you have is relevant, and the
Mm-hmm.
spells you get to copy with it are important. If it didn't cost double red, I could see playing it, but it's so hard to hardcast, especially like with the amount of red ticks I have right now. It's like I'm not gonna be able to keep mana up for it, like my fork or something like that. Like I'd much rather just play fork if that's the case, and I'm not playing that. I'm not playing the one that I can swerve and do that stuff, and
Mhm.
making it free. I don't think makes it better.
Okay, I
Like
was just
because
thinking.
it's
Mhm.
sacrifice something very relevant to my board state.
I was just thinking, like in a pinch, right? There's a stack war. You sack a dwarf to fierce guard someone's fierce guard that's trying to win, or hey, you have a demonic tutor. I'm gonna sack my dwarf for your demonic tutor. That's kind of my idea, but I don't play Magda, so.
But a lot of times, like let's say I'm sacking a dwarf to demonic tutor,
Mhm.
like in that situation, am I going to even come close to what he's getting? Like, I'm going to
Mhm.
search for Lightning Bolt to answer his Orcish Bowmaster, if that's the case plan he's going, or he
Mhm.
plays Mystic Study, or he
Mhm.
goes for the win here, and I have a burn spell at the best case scenario in my hand after
Deflecting
sacking this
swat,
thing. I'd
maybe.
much
Yeah.
rather, like, if I was playing a card like that, I'd be playing it on my cards. My Bottle Cap Blast, my Jeskai Wills. If I'm targeting my opponent's cards, I'm probably losing the game by discarding 2 cards to hopefully not get counterspelled.
Okay, so you're
Because
low
if
on
they just
flare.
counterspell it, then I'm just like blown out of the game anyways.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. And like again, there's not a lot of red creatures nowadays. There's like
Yeah.
Ragavan, like in non-Magna decks. I get what you're
And then,
saying.
do you want to sack your Ragavan? Like, in
If
those
I have to,
situations, do you think you
yeah,
get in a better place by sacrificing Ragavan over
yeah,
playing just a different card that was slightly better?
yeah. I played a lot of Rogsai, so I'm probably
Yeah.
in Rogsai. It's fucking insane.
Well, but Rockside's also a different, like,
That's a
having
whole another ball game.
anything to synergize with your commanders, it's really hard to say it's the same as all the other decks.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Yeah, sevens Blood Moon, six. I got Gamble. I know it's kind of high. It's just my spoiler. My number one's Unreal Breach. I
Mhm.
just feel like in like a Blue Farm deck or a Grizzlies deck, if you resolve a gamble early game, you might win. Like gamble,
Um,
if I don't discard Unreal Breach, I win the game. I cast Unreal Breach, cast gamble, LED, game's over. And I feel like maybe lower red decks don't play it, but like every Unreal Breach deck plays it, and it's that strong.
I think that most of the other red decks, like Gamble, is an extremely strong card. Like you mentioned, Breach specifically, and it's
Mhm.
hard to find a deck that's playing Breach and not playing Gamble.
Right,
But
right.
I think that decks like Godo have to play it
Hmm.
just because it's the way to get the other piece. If I was playing
Hmm.
the Heat Shimmer combo in my deck, I'd probably be playing Gamble in my deck because it's a
Right,
way to get to there.
right.
Like
Well, if you're in
I
red, you're
think
in
if you
breach
have
almost
something
every
to,
time.
yeah, if
Mm.
you have something to search for, like in any of the 5 color decks, I'm playing Gamble.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
because yeah, I'm not gonna not want to. I'm not cutting Mystical Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor. Why would I cut this one?
Hmm.
Like it's gonna just do the job I need it to do
Yeah,
for a lot less mana.
100%. But I agree with you. Like, if you're on red, you're probably on Unreal Breach. But if you're not on Unreal Breach, you're probably not on Gamble, and that's fine.
And
Right.
Gamble's on my list. It's pretty. It's not at near the top for sure.
Yeah.
Like it's I wasn't sure on like the spot, so Gamble's sharing with the next card I'm going to say, like
Hmm.
because they just like I think do a lot of the same thing, which is
Yeah.
weird.
What do you got?
Lightning Bolt.
Really? In your top 10?
It definitely made my top 10 for red cards.
It did not make my top 10.
First,
For CDH?
but for CDH specifically, I don't think people play it enough. They don't play these. Like I was already, I don't know if we were on live or we talked beforehand, but I don't think enough people are playing removal spells in
Yeah.
CDH, and they're letting people get away with shit. And Lightning Bolt is a stopgap. At
Hmm.
1 red, it's hard for you to convince me that I shouldn't be playing it.
Hmm.
Like I'm not saying play Incinerate or Magma Jet or one of these 2 mana cards. It's at 1, it does its thing. I'm not on it in Magna because I do have Metalcraft pretty easily, so I do play Galvanic Blast.
Hmm.
But because of what it does, like I can't think of a time where I had a red CDH deck and I didn't have Lightning Bolt in the 110 cards. Like it was always coming in and going out and doing all these things.
Right. I think the problem, like, like say Blue Farm or a 5 color deck or a Grixis deck, the card quality is so hard or so high, it's hard to get Lightning Bolt in there because you're on SWAT, you're on Deadly Rollick, you're probably on Dismember, right? Though all those
Hmm.
cards are way better than Lightning Bolt. But I agree,
Uh,
if you're like a Thrasios Rograk deck or a 2 color deck or a 1 color deck, I agree, Lightning Bolt's fucking insane.
I think in those decks, like the Blue Farm is a great example where I'd be pretty strong on playing Lightning Bolt because of
Mm,
what it does when you have cards like Bowmaster in your deck and Mystic Study and all these things. Bolt just does extra heavy lifting. Like
mm,
if you pay your taxes and I just bolt the card you put into play, like I'm just leaps and bounds ahead of you
mm.
because it was just one mana to kill off that cannon, to kill off that devoted druid, to kill off these things.
Sisay,
Yeah, and
Thrasios, Timna.
it's not pyroblastable. It's like it fits all these criteria. Like it being a red card is one of its strengths because it's not going to trigger a compost. It's not triggering any of these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to bolt something.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it back in my Nagila deck just because I'm back on Adnaz. And I feel like I like that more than Deadly Rollick, but Deadly Rollick like hits a lot of things, and my
But
whole
it
deck
also
is
makes
Commander
the
Syndrome.
Nagila actually do damage sometimes. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just
Right,
sets you up to be able to do just a little. Like, and that's what it is with
like get rid
Nagila
of the
and Winota.
yeah, get the
Yeah,
pesty blocker out of here, or get the annoying piece out of here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like this, there's too many creature-based combo decks
Mm-hmm.
that you just like lightning bolt stops it. Like Magda's a great example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bolt the Magda, bolt the Bergie, bolt like.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cards that just like die to bolt that are very important to not die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the cards that are not relevant against like most decks except for Magda are the ones I was talking about. Why I don't like Lightning Bolt because of those.
Mm-hmm.
Like no, Limbala doesn't affect anybody. It affects the Magda guy pretty heavily, but doesn't
Mm-hmm.
affect all the other people. So
Mm-hmm.
Bolt becomes better against them. Talion being a 4 drop isn't really relevant against Blue Farm because they don't care you play Talion. They just stop it. Like
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah, they don't care
That's
about that.
in line with what cards they're not worried about.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Yeah, I mean, you have to think like when I look at lists, maybe 4 or 5 removal spells because they're on all the counter spells.
Mm,
So it's like, no, I agree. It's just like just with lightning bolt in general, right? Just say my 5 color deck. It's like just say Najila. There's literally 120 cards I can go Najila easily. I have 3 pages in my binder that can go, and like those last slots are so hard to find. So Lightning Bolt, I agree with you. It hits Stranith. I have a commander plan. It hits that blocker. It can hit that guy when he's ad nausing. It could hit this. It could do that. It's just overall the card quality, like are you playing that over like the extra card draw engine? If your commander doesn't draw, it's over, you know what I'm saying? But I see you're saying people need to play more removal, and I'll definitely look at it more after this for sure.
Oh yeah, it's something that people. It's the first card for somebody to cut because this cool new flavorful card came out in a new set.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the removal spell is always
Right.
like the easiest one on the chopping block because they
Yeah.
don't realize how relevant it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like going into 2025, like for me, my top 5 is TNT, Blue Farm, Cannon, Sisay, and then like insert deck here, like say Magda. 3 out of 5 of them get fucked up by removal.
Yeah,
You like you bolt someone's Timna turn 2, and they just like they're way out of the game. They're like, oh, I kept this
yeah,
sussy hand because I thought I was drawing cards. It's like my 1 mana lightning bolt says you're not.
yeah. And it's not just like if you said like 3 out of 5. Like I think all 5 of those decks get affected by lightning bolt pretty heavily.
Mm-hmm.
Because all right, which of those decks don't play Bowmaster?
Yeah,
Which
dorks,
like
birds of
or the
paradise,
3 mana guy that gets all your cards flash, the 2/3 guy,
flood color,
flood
yeah, like
color.
flood color, yeah.
Like there's a lot of cards that people like. Birds of Paradise is a pretty good card that gets played all the time.
Bolt the bird. Yeah, I got you. We can talk about lightning bolt all day. My number 5, I got Jessica's will.
That was on my honorable mention list because
Oh,
I think
so good.
that when it's good, it's good, but when it's not, it's the worst 3 mana spell you can play in a red
Mm,
deck.
mm-hmm.
Like, sure, you're like, all right, sweet, I was able to get this mana, was able to get these cards, that was cool,
Mm-hmm.
but you're putting all these resources that is too easy to stop, and you're putting it on the table. It's like, here's what we have going on. You
Mm-hmm.
see what's going on here, what the plan is, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that decks like Godo, it's a auto include because it's just another Dark Ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're playing all the other ones, they're gonna play this one.
Well, turn one,
Like
you get 7 red mana in a mono red deck.
yeah, but like a deck like Godo doesn't even get both effects.
Right. Yeah. But like
Like
decks like Atali or the big dumb
yeah,
commanders, the 5 mana commander plus.
yeah, but is it good in those decks or is it okay? I think the
Right.
card is very okay.
Hmm.
Like you played Rogak long enough. Like, have you ever whiffed on a Jeskai Will?
Yeah, I almost cut it. I literally almost cut the card. And
It's
then
because you just had a bad run.
the last
And
time
like,
I played it, though, I was literally going second. And I threw a gemstone and then turn two Jessica's Will. And I hit a gamble and grinding station and like a dark ritual. And I won turn one going second with Jessica's Will. But every
yeah,
other time I whiffed.
yeah, and that's the biggest problem with that kind of
Yeah.
card. It's
1 out of 10 times. Yeah.
well, it's not that. It's confirmation bias. You remember the time you won,
Hmm.
and you just know that sometimes you didn't. And it should be the other way around. You should remember how many times you lost, not how many times you won.
Yeah.
Because if you won the game, everything worked out for you. If you lost the game, everything did not work out for you.
Hmm. Yeah, you definitely you remember the good stuff more than you remember the bad stuff for sure.
Yeah.
What do you got around 5? Have any of
Well, we
those?
skipped over a bunch of my slots, but
What do you got?
Professional Facebreaker would be the next one on my list. I
Okay.
think this card is extremely underrated.
Mm.
And from playing a lot of this format, like any of the decks that are attacking should be playing Professional Facebreaker. It's
I
not
cut
even
I
close.
cut it from
Like,
Agila because I'm more on Adnos as a backup plan because PFB is kind of slow. But I was thinking about putting it back in because of what you just said.
yeah, it does so much work.
Yeah.
Like nobody kills it for some reason because nobody plays lightning bolts. Like,
Ah,
it's he just sticks around forever.
I gotta
Like
sneeze.
you can get like if you get one contact, God forbid it's 3 players, you're looking at 6 cards deep, or you got ramped.
Yeah.
Like
Well, that's
it's
not Magna bias though, because PFB and Magna's insane.
no, actually I think it was from me playing oh man, I can't remember. It was one of the 4 color decks that the one with the black white guy. Timna.
Blue Farm?
It might have been Blue Farm.
Yeah,
Does Blue Farm have
Timnacrom.
it's red?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Timnacrom.
Then
Yeah.
it was definitely that deck that after playing that deck, like I played probably 10, 20 games with it,
Hmm.
and Professional Facebreaker, if I played him, I felt better about my game.
Mm.
Because you also have those other dumb creatures that are generating tokens for you that
Hmm.
aren't but Professional Facebreaker. So you just
Hmm.
have like this double dip, and like I said, nobody kills her. She just sits around forever. Like if she was an artifact, she'd be dead immediately.
I think she has Menace too, right?
Yep, she's a 2/3 with Menace.
Yeah.
That when she does combat damage to an opponent, or when any of your creatures do combat damage to an opponent, you get a treasure token. You can sack a treasure token, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and play one if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes around like null rod effects, right?
Yeah.
Because you're activating her.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. Yeah, I'm gonna put her back in. I need you to look at my Nagila deck.
God forbid you have another token generator, like Ragavan, I guess,
Yeah.
or Smoldering Tithe. Like she just does a lot of work that
Hmm.
people don't realize.
Yeah, and she's evasive too. Like I feel like it goes in a lot of Tedna decks for sure. My speaking of that, my number 4 is Ragavan.
Ragavan didn't even make the commander list for me.
No way! I figured Ragavan would be your number 1.
Um,
Post ban Ragavan is doing so much work just because Tedna is the best.
um, my 10 cards. If you tell me which one you think don't belong in the 10 to put Ragavan in, I'll be impressed.
I don't know, man.
Like, but you also weren't on Professional Facebreaker.
Right, or Lightning Bolt.
Yeah. You know what fucking Ragavan dies to? Lightning Bolt and Professional Facebreaker. Sounds like he's dead to like every card on my list.
I think you're tripping. I think Ragavan's fucking insane.
I'm not saying it's bad.
I think Ragavan has changed Magic for the better.
Yeah, man, I believe it's a great card. I'm not saying it's not a great card. I'm just saying that it did not make the top 10 cards. And I actually have 11 on my list.
All right, give me some of yours. What do you got?
Bergie.
I hate Bergie.
Bergie
Mm-mm.
does so many things in so many decks that's unfair.
I played Mono Red Bergie and I had so much fun. I just
Uh,
never
I
won.
wouldn't. I guess I wouldn't play
It
Bergie
sucks.
as a commander.
It sucks.
I
It
would,
sucks.
but like watching what she does in Blue Farm, what she does in like any of these red decks that are going long,
Mm,
and all these combo decks like the coin flip deck or the different variants of Magda or other stuff where like she does because she has both sides and both sides are good.
yeah.
Like she's just one of the best cards to compensate for Storm, and there's not another card like her. Like
Hmm.
she fits this exact mold that you won't find a card that like I'm not playing Bergie because I'm playing this, and you're not playing Bergie because it doesn't belong in your deck.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the control like mid range decks kind of don't play it, and like the
Mm.
4 or 5 color decks don't play it because red is probably like not really a color that you need. But I
And I
definitely
bet this
think.
next card did not make your list either.
I,
Pyroblast.
yeah, that's my number 3.
Oh, okay. Pyroblast, Venom Blast were 2 spots on my list.
Just because Ristic Study, and Mr. Gore to me are the best cards in the format.
I was thinking Thassa's Oracle.
I don't know.
Like the other cards are important to stop, obviously, when you have the opportunity. But because as long as Thassa's Oracle is a major part of the format,
Hmm.
you have to have Pyroblast, Venom Blast in your deck because it stops those cards.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
it's not just a counter spell; it's a removal
yeah,
spell, and I think that's why they're
mm,
so good. Like
yeah,
how many? I don't know about you, but literally feels like every single game I go against, it's literally Ristic or Mystic or Orcish Bowmaster
yeah.
wins in the game. And every single time I'm like, what one? He drew 10 cards with Ristic Study. So it's like I feel like Pyro and Red are at a premium, and I see it almost in every deck now. Before you didn't
Mm.
see it as much. Now people are cutting counter spells for these just because those 3, 4, 5 blue cards are that good.
Well, it also Flood Caller is relevant,
Yeah. Floodcaller,
and
Thorkel, any of the
Thassios,
commanders, yep, any of the
like,
Kennen, any of those,
eh,
yeah.
and then there's also dumb cards that get killed by it that are just like always played in Kennen as blue creatures, like
Mm-hmm.
Consecrated Sphinx.
Hullbreaker Horror.
Yeah, Hullbreaker Horror.
Yeah,
Pyro Blastable.
yeah. I was on Tivit for a year. I couldn't tell you how many times because once Tivit hits, it sticks as a word 3.
Yeah.
How many times someone blew me out with a fucking 1 mana red blast, and I'm just like, come on, man. Like, oh, Atraxa. Someone just, I'll red blast the Atraxa on the stack, and it's like, all right, they're over.
Yeah.
Game's over.
All right. So what's the next one in yours? Because we're getting pretty close to all the cards being mentioned.
Well, I have 2 and 1. Do you have any others?
I do. Let's see. 2, 1. Yeah, I mentioned all the other ones because we already mentioned Gamble. We mentioned Wheel of Fortune,
Mm.
and they were in those generic
Yeah,
spots.
my number 2 is Deflecting Swat.
My number one is Deflecting Swat. My
All
number two
right.
is
Breach.
Underworld Breach. Yep.
Nah, I think you're crazy.
Deflecting SWAT does more than Underworld Breach does.
No
Underworld
chance.
Breach belongs in almost all the red decks. Deflecting SWAT belongs in all the red decks.
No, it doesn't because a lot of red commanders are 4, 5, 6 mana, right? I,
Yeah, but what about like look at CDH top decks and click red and tell me which deck list like it doesn't play Deflecting SWAT.
yeah,
You will find deck lists that don't play Underworld Breach. You will not find a deck list with red in it that doesn't play Deflecting SWAT.
yeah,
And if you do, that guy's just a moron anyways. You shouldn't listen to him.
right. Yeah, I did. I did the judge pod, and I didn't know how powerful deflecting spot was until I learned a bunch of rules. With Mind Break Trap on the stack, say targeting 10 spells, you can
Yeah,
swat the Mind Break Trap and then target everything you want.
yeah,
I didn't know you could do that. I thought it was just a single. It's like targets. And
yeah.
I was like,
It's end number. Yeah.
holy shit. Yeah, that card's really strong. I
And
like that card
also,
more than
you
Fierce Card.
can it counters fucking Orcish Bowmaster.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's removal.
yeah,
It's removal on his. Oh, you're going to swords my commander or his irrelevant thing? I'm going to swat it to yours. Yeah,
you gonna untap that card? No, you're
yeah,
not.
yeah. And I agree because there's a lot of probably the best cards in the format or best decks in the format are lower commanders anyways.
But also, if you look at the top 10 list we're both looking at, the only one card on this list is bannable. Like, and that's Underworld Breach. Like, the other cards are not even close to bannable, and I think they're some of the best red cards in the format.
Um, yeah, yeah, I can agree. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast about the free spells. I think SWAT and guard are broken, but yeah,
I think they
I'm
are,
just,
but they're
I'm,
not bannable. Like I think they're checks and balances.
yeah,
We
100%.
need these cards.
Yeah, I have Underworld Reach circled. Obviously, that's my number one. I want to talk about it for a minute. I feel like when people are like, "Oh, red's bad now. Red's the worst color." I think people are sleeping on Underworld Reach. It is single-handedly the best one card like combo. Like Thoracle, you need this, or yeah, I get you need LED and you need Brain Freeze. Just having Underworld Reach in your deck where you can just untap and just win out of nowhere. With Thoracle, I feel like it's really easy to interact with. With Breach, it's like if you don't counter this, it's like over.
Yeah.
How do you
Well, and
feel
I
about
think
it?
that the biggest thing Breach has going for it is as a permanent, if it resolves, all the fight you did to keep it alive is also the fight you get to keep using afterwards. Like, so having cards like Pact of
Pact
Negation, Force of
negation,
Will, well, as Force of Will is not a great example, but Pact of Negation is
pact
a good
negation.
example.
Yeah.
Deflecting SWAT, stuff like that, that's low to the ground. And then because of cards like Lion's Eye Diamond, you can just come out of any situation you were already stuck in.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to when we were talking about Jeskai Will, and I said this card's bad, but once you have Underworld Breach in play, we're talking about two different things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's now like, yeah, I should obviously have Jeskai Will in my deck. I have Underworld Breach in my deck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wheel of Fortune, Gamble. Like, if you just look at the list of the top 10 cards we were talking about, every one is relevant with Underworld Breach coming into play, except
Mm-hmm.
for Professional Facebreaker. And
Yeah.
that's probably just a mistake. He probably should be with the Underworld Breach. They do
Yeah.
good things.
Yeah, I
And
can't think of a lot of red decks that aren't on Breach besides Magda. Like it's really
uh,
even the five color decks.
it's
They're gonna play
it's a
the.
very good Yagmoth will in a lot of the decks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that Breach is important to the format because it
Mm-hmm.
makes cards like Soul Guide Lantern and Endurance and stuff much more relevant. Like
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
it just stopping Thoracle or something like that, you're stopping this other important card in the format. So you got to keep
Mm-hmm.
an eye on the guy's graveyard. You got to keep an eye on his count. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
look at the Necropotence plans when they're going for Born into the Wind without
Yeah.
Underworld Breach, what do they do there? Like they don't get the same
Mm-hmm.
game in any way. Like Breach is just so important to their plan, and that's after drawing 30 plus cards off Necropotence.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much stronger is Necropotence than Underworld Breach?
Mm-hmm.
And we if you look at the different big decks in the format, Underworld Breach is just another tier S card that everybody's playing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think people are putting much thought into whether or not they should play Breach and they're just playing Breach, which is why I think it's on that bannable list.
Mm.
Like,
Okay. I agree.
Thoracle's on that same example. Like Thoracle, Orcish Bowmaster, Underworld Breach, Ristic Study. These are all cards that you don't think about putting in your deck. You put them in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when a card gets to that point in a singleton format with 100 cards, like if every single deck is 99 cards plus this one,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to think about how the format is looking at this card.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hashtag ban Sol Ring.
Yeah, I talked about it in my blue pod. We're talking about Thassa's Oracle as a card, it sucks, right?
Yeah,
Under a Breach as a card, you can still play it in a lot of red decks for value,
yeah.
right?
You could play it in the 5 color decks even more so. If
100%.
you're not going for like this cool Drain Freeze plan,
Yeah.
like cards like Faithless Looting fare up this card real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, or the Savine's Reclamation. Like, what it does when you have Breach is so ridiculous.
Yeah. Well,
Because,
intuition, you win the game because
yeah,
Sabine's Wreck and Under a Breach.
yeah. And also, if you flashback Savine's Vec
You
with
get two.
Underworld Breach or Escaping, you get 2, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty insane if you just pay 3 mana to get 2 permanents from your graveyard.
Yeah. Yeah, if I were to tell somebody about CDH, try to get them in the format, and they're like, "Well, what's the best cards?" In my mind, it's this format is defined by Ristic Study, Under a Breach, and Thassa's Oracle. Those are the cards that you need to read up and do your homework on. If I could explain to somebody
Yeah.
that doesn't know anything.
If I was trying to get somebody into this format and they weren't on the I'm going to print out my deck list,
Mm-hmm.
I would put them on Magus and Blood Moon and say build from here.
Okay.
Like, because they're so cheap and the decks that go with them,
Yeah.
like you can get into CDH for a lot cheaper than people try to say.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we can't be a god like you with all the magic cards, but some of us poor people can build from a budget.
Well, like
And
Magda,
I
right?
think, yeah,
Magda's a top 5 deck, and it's probably a third of like those 4 or 5 color decks.
yeah. And my Magda is a little more expensive
Oh,
because I chose that
okay,
way.
not your
But
Magda. We stopped counting after 10,000.
but there's these things that I think if you want to really get a grasp as a new player into what CDH is,
Mm,
grabbing a stacks piece like Blood Moon Magus of the Moon will teach you a lot more than knowing Mystic Study's good.
right,
Like,
and I feel like red as a color would be good for that too.
yeah.
Like
Well, I would get almost anybody on blue red. Like that would be if they're
yeah,
learning CDH. I'm like choose blue red or a 3-color pile, but
mm,
probably just stick to those 2 colors,
yeah,
and you'll learn a lot more about the format
yeah,
before you start investing like
yeah.
in which underground sea you want to buy.
Yeah, when we have events, I just print paper and give it to people. I love giving people Godo because it's like, hey, you play mana, you play red, you play your commander. It's a 1 card combo. I love giving people Eureka. It's not a lot of nuance to it. You play your commander, you do your thing. And I agree
Well,
though, like with red.
and I've played your Godo list. It was harsh, and I
I,
won with it,
I
but it
wasn't
was
on
like
Mana
real
Crypt.
bad.
Yeah, I wasn't on Mana Crypt before the
Well, you were
ban.
just planning ahead for the ban. You probably didn't have Dockside either.
Well, I print like 5 decks within a day, and I just took a deck list and printed it. And you're like, all right, man, you're not a Mana Crypt. I'm gonna win anyways. I'm just letting you know. And I was just like, oh,
This
okay.
might be relevant later. Like the best thing about it was
Godo's
you
so
and
good.
Barrett going back through the deck like there's definitely a Mana Crypt in here, and I'm like, no, it took me one cursory glance to know there's not one in here, guys.
Well, we even counted the deck twice. We're like,
Yeah,
maybe it's missing. Nope, no, there's 100 cards.
I probably
Yeah.
would cut this shitty Thran Dynamo for it.
Yeah, I'm on Thranduil and not Mana Crypt. Oh, good times. Good times. So I want to talk about, so we talked about those cards. I kind of want to talk about post ban. Like, obviously, Dockside to me was probably one of the best cards ever for CEDH. And I
um,
kind of want to talk about what does red look like post ban after Dockside? Do you think red is like way worse now? Do you still think it's overrated, underrated? What do you think?
I definitely think people are undervaluing Red right now just because they were on that plan of if once I cast Dockside, I win, which could be interchanged with a lot of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We just spent 10 minutes talking about Underworld Breach and all the stuff it does,
Mm-hmm.
and Dockside is a very okay card. Like I
Right.
think the best thing that happened to Red with the ban from Dockside is the Ad Nauseam deck isn't like just going for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we needed something like that. Like the red decks, all the red decks just suffered if somebody got away with casting Ad Nauseam.
Right. I now see
Like,
him in Brogside are at its worst
and
right now.
and I think that was very good for red.
I agree.
Like
I agree.
whether we talk about the Stella or Magda, Godo, these decks just Dockside was more detrimental than it was helpful. Like
Right.
all the red decks are playing just artifact mana. We're playing as much as we possibly can.
Mm.
So if somebody plays a Dockside, they just catch up to us. So
Yeah.
now we just
Yeah.
wasted. Like sure, we had the same option, but no one's going to get as many artifacts out as the red deck or the blue red deck or something like that.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing when the ban first happened that first day. Everybody was like, oh, Magda's done. Magda sucks now. And you're like, I never won casting a Dockside. Like, Magda got better because you guys aren't on Dockside. What are you talking about?
And that's
uh,
when we first had that conversation about post ban, and it's Dockside Mana Crypt and how important these cards are. And
mhm.
if I was choosing a deck to play, I would choose the one that's played these cards that don't need them. Like
Yeah,
and
right.
like which is every deck in the format played Dockside and Mana Crypt. So
Yeah.
now you just keep playing those decks and find the one that didn't need them.
Hmm.
Like
Mana Crypt is the only one out of those 4 that I'm like missing. Like when I'm storming off or I'm tutoring or like whatever I'm doing, and I'm like, man, Mana Crypt would be great right now. But
but
the
that's
other
also a
ones,
great sign. That means it was probably right. Like, if every
yeah,
time you look through your deck you think one card is what you should demonic tutor for, you should question
right.
that card.
Or like a turn 1 Vamp Tutor, it always got Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, but that's controversial though. Like, there's still Soul Ring, so we're fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I kind of want to talk about. Um, do you think red is the best color?
I do not.
Okay, I don't either. If you could rank out of the 5 color pie, where would you put red?
Red's probably number 3.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good argument.
Black is a good support color, and
Hmm.
white is also a good support color, but they don't have much bearing to stand on. Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, a lot of people are giving more press to
Hmm.
than them actually just being cards in your deck. They're just searching for the other colored cards.
Hmm.
How often do you think somebody's Vampiric Tutor or Demonic Tutor for a black card?
Right.
Like,
No,
it's just, yeah.
no. Well, I think it's blue black, and then I think red and white are fighting for the spots. But like we were talking about off air a week ago, you don't remember, but we're talking about the overall card quality. If I were to build a 5 color deck, and then if you look in that five color good stuff deck, and you look at, there's probably only 4 or 5 red cards. Like if you were to rank the top 20 cards in CDH, there's only a couple red ones because it was Dockside Breach, and that's why red was so good. Well, Dockside got banned, now it's just Breach kind of holding it up because, like, comparatively to the other cards in the format. But when you start talking about the cards like Deflecting Swat and Gamble and Blood Moon, yeah, they're insane. But you compare it to a Risic Study or this, I feel like it kind of falls. But that's definitely a good argument for third for sure.
Like, I think that the card quality, like, so if you, like, we were just talking about that, playing just 5 color decks,
Mm-hmm.
and I guarantee that red is the reason they went 5 colors. If they didn't go red, they'd be going 3 colors.
Okay.
Like, because the cards you have, like the ones we just mentioned, Deflecting Swat, Underworld Breach, Wheel of Fortune, these are all
Yeah.
cards that
Yeah.
the deck doesn't work the same without them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you can look at the America decks and stuff like that, and the only reason they're playing this, like, that says a
Because of
lot about
Breach
the strength of the deck is
of the color.
because
Yeah.
these couple cards are enough to push everything up.
Yeah.
Like, the
Yeah.
red cards are game breaking, the black cards search for the other color cards, the white cards are average.
Mm-hmm.
Green is its own entity because, like, there's certain cards like Kennen
Mm-hmm.
and Omnath and stuff that are just not replaceable effects. There's just not,
Mm-hmm.
the
Thrasios.
green deck is doing the green thing.
Yeah, Thrasios is the best it's ever been right
Yeah.
now. So let's kind of talk about it. So let's kind of talk about comparative of Blue Farm and TNT. Blue Farm was the best deck for 3 years by far, and then now TNT came out of nowhere because obviously Dockside and all those other faster mana rocks are banned. Let's kind of compare the two of why play TNT, right? Like you got to compare a Hazel Brewmaster devoted Druid line to an Underworld Breach. To me, I'd rather be on Blue Farm. I'd rather play Underworld Breach. But a lot of people, they don't
I
need red anymore. But I think it's wrong. I'm just
I think because of the meta, the reason the Sans red deck does better is just because how we're currently doing it. Like, where we're very
we're
on the
still new in
attacking
the
plan.
we're still new in the
Like,
meta. We're
yeah.
4 months in the new meta. 100%.
And as long as we're attacking, we should be completely fine and there's no issues at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and if we stop attacking, I think the blue farm deck becomes much better.
Yeah, well, I still think Blue Farm's cracked. I don't know if TT would be better than it, but just that's what people are like. Why am I playing red now? Because there's no Dockside. It's like y'all are sleeping on Underworld Breach. Like I think Underworld Breach by itself is that strong and can carry red.
Yeah, and I
Like
can understand that completely.
like I'm in a 4 or 5 color shell is what I mean.
Yeah,
But again, like looking at it, when you look at the best mono decks in the format, there's maybe mono blue Urza. There's not really any good mono white decks. Maybe a couple mono green decks, but they're all mid. You got Crick, and then you got Magda and Godo. And Magda is just head and shoulders above all the other ones. Is it
yeah.
because it's in red? Yes, it's because red can do that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think
And I
Magda's
think that,
good.
yeah. And I think it's, if you just look at the couple red, like the cards we just talked about, like the best black cards, like for Crick, aren't very good. Like, you have Necro and stuff like that, and it's like
Yeah.
the worst Necro deck. But if you look at red, like the best Magna cards are way different and not played by any other deck in the format. Like
Well, because of
Godgrove
Magda.
statue and stuff
Magda.
like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Clock of
Godo same
Omens.
way. Godo's playing a lot of cards that nobody else is playing because its job is to do this one thing and it does it well.
Count mana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Count to 11, I
Whereas
win the game. Yeah.
if you look at any of the 2 and 3 color combo decks and stuff, they're doing all these other things that have nothing to do with what the monocolor decks do.
Mm-hmm.
Like A good example would be like the old Heliod deck that was all about playing like the ballista combo to kill everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't get much more than like here's my only goal, and if I get stopped, I don't have any more plans. And
Mm-hmm.
whereas if you look at a deck like Godo is a great example of build around me, do what you can to do my effect.
Yeah.
And that's why they get like the equipment that makes it we can't play spells. You have the Helm of the Host combo. You
Mm-hmm.
have all these other pieces and all these other interactions going on
Hammer.
where people
Yeah.
just aren't stopping you. Yeah.
And I don't think Godo's on Breach either. I think
No.
Godo's just all about Godo.
If they're playing Breach, they're playing it because of the Agmosville concept. Like, in case I have to
The
cast rituals again.
rituals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. So what do you think? What do you think the weaknesses to red is? Because we know the strengths,
Um,
obviously.
the cards look too good. Like, when a red deck is winning, it's very obvious. When a deck with
Mm,
like Mystic Study, Mystic are winning, they just have a bunch of cards in their hand, so you don't really know what all's going on in this interaction.
mm,
Like Magda, I could have 3 treasures up, and everybody at the table stop to pay attention to what I'm doing.
mm-hmm,
And Godo same way, like he's working to get to this point. Whereas the same person could be playing Kennen, and they would be ignoring the stuff he has in play, which doesn't make any sense. Where these certain cards look a lot better, obviously,
mm-hmm.
and no one's paying attention to the other cards or the actual problems at the table.
Okay, so you're
Like,
saying red isn't inconspicuous. Red
yeah,
is like,
Red's
hey,
very yeah.
aggro, this is what I'm doing, deal with it
I'm
or
a
you
lightning rod.
lose.
Yeah,
And for me, I feel like that's the strength of red. Like I play red because of the explosion. If I'm on Adnaz, I'm definitely on red. Like I don't play Esper Adnaz or Sans Red Adnaz. No, I'm playing red 4/5 3 color Grixis because of Adnaz and red because you have the Rite of Flame and you play Tinderwall now and you play Underworld Breach and you have all this stuff where it's like, hey guys, my resolve is Adnaz. 100% y'all are losing because I'm in
yeah,
red. And I feel like a lot of colors don't have that. People are on
mm,
Timna, Malcolm, Esper, Adnaz. Oh, well, instep, draw 20 cards. I'm like, yeah, but now your life total's 7. And now you don't have a way to win. Like, I love Malcolm Timna, but I can tell you how many times I've waited until the very end to win and then people try to draw or I'm discarding for turn. If you're in red in a aggressive deck like that, you're not doing that. You're either getting stopped or you're winning. And that's what I liked about Roxai is you are the problem. But I really like Izzet right now. I'm brewing a couple of Izzet decks. I think red blue is just together so strong right now. And I heard a thing from Comedian today. He's talking about he thinks 2025 is the year of the low color piles because the last 2 3 years it's been the 4 color pile, the Sans green or the Sans red or whatever.
yeah.
And going forward in 2025, how do you think red is going to fare? Like, how do you think? Like, you think they're in a good spot? And obvious, and also, I wanted to add before you talked, I wanted to add that I don't think there was a lot of good red cards printed in 2025 or 2024. I think red got hit. The banning of Dockside really hurts. We got like flare duplication. There's another red card I can't think of right now. Like going forward, do you think Wizards is going to print better red cards? Do you think like what's it look
Um,
like for 2025?
I think that the red cards that we got were actually a lot more relevant than you think. Like, and because a lot of them are inconspicuous, like Siege Smashing came out in this year in 2024,
Yeah, but no one's playing that except
and
Magda.
well, how many mono red decks are being played in
Mm,
CDH right now?
mm.
Like, Magda and Godo both play it. And
Okay.
the other cards that are less conspicuous are the artifacts and stuff like that. Like, we just took the spoiler about that one artifact that just like is game breaking, and it's going to be very relevant to a lot of these people, like
Oh
very
yeah,
soon.
the Magda card.
Like, I think that Wizards is leaning a lot more of the design space towards these multicolored decks,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty harsh. But if you look at like the Magda deck's playing 7 cards that came out in the last year.
Yeah, I have a Magda is like Sisse. They're always gonna
Yeah,
print cards for that deck, like on accident. They love
yeah.
vehicles. They love those
But like we have
effects.
a vehicle set coming out in 2 months. If you think
Yeah,
that's not going to affect Magda,
yeah, yeah. And Magda's so
yeah.
strong. um, what was I gonna say? Post ban. I forgot. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about red before I ended up?
No, I think that's everything for the most part. Like, just Aether Drift's going to be a very big improvement to red for the current format.
Mm-hmm. And yeah.
And we have like 6 cards spoiled.
And do you think so? Overall, do you think red is underrated?
I
Your
think that
non-biased Magna
people
opinion.
are not valuing it in the same way I would.
Okay.
Like, it's very easy to see how strong the blue black cards are.
Mm-hmm.
And though people will glance over like we were talking about lightning bolt in the beginning, like how
Mm-hmm.
important this kind of card is, but it doesn't do anything, so people don't think about it. Like it's just a regular text box.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's generic, right? It's been
Yeah,
around since literally beta, alpha. Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely think going. I think red red could possibly be the second best if it gets more support. But yeah, if I'm looking at a lower color deck, I'm definitely looking for red for sure. Because
yeah,
like you said, I built Jessica Ishai again, and then Barrick, my brother-in-law, he built Brawlin Shabraz, and that deck is literally wheels Underworld Breach. Like how fast can I get Underworld Breach? And if Underworld Breach wasn't a card, those decks wouldn't even be alive, right?
yeah,
But I think those are solid B tier decks because of the Underworld Breach combo. And I agree. I think going forward, kind of why I did the colors. Going forward in 2025, I think it's going to be the year of the activation, the Sisei, the Kennen, the Magdas, right? But I
mm,
definitely think it's brewing season, and people are just taking old stuff, and trying to rework it. It's like I feel like you should take like Ian took Yinit and this new Plagon commander. It's a starfish that draws cards in ETB of greatest toughness and
yeah.
power, and it's
Very
doing
similar to Prime Speaker.
yeah, doing so much work, and people are like, "Where'd this come from?" And I feel like there's a lot of commanders that got slept on, and that
Yeah,
put like Duretti. I saw Duretti deck, the mono red planeswalker, and it's actually doing a lot of work. It sneaks artifacts in, right? It has a lot of dumb
yeah,
artifacts where Dockside would punish that, right? The Sithis decks, Sithis doesn't give a fuck anymore. You're not just giving somebody one with Dockside. Sithis does
yeah,
a lot of work right now. So I feel like 2025 is the year of the brewer, especially the first quarter, and I'm really excited to see these couple of big tournaments that are coming up. Hopefully, we go to some in February and kind
yeah,
of see where the lay of the land is. But I agree, it's really hard to leave home without red
yeah,
like all day. I love Esper, but red is just it's too good. It's Tinderwall, Rite of Flame, Gamble, Underworld Breach. They're just too good of cards for me, and I feel like they can carry the color, and it's fine because not a lot of colors can do that. Like white, you have Silence, right? You have
mm,
Dranith, Ranger Captain. Are those 3, 4 cards carrying that color? It's like they're really not
yeah,
compared to red, right? Like you got blue, which blue's always been broken in Magic. Period. And then you got black, you got the tutors. What else you have in black? Orcish and tutors. What do you got in green? You have the green creature tutors, right? I feel like red has so many different things red is doing. You have the bolts and you have the synergy and you have the rituals,
mm,
you know. But I agree. That's about all the time we have for today. Um yeah, we got green and we got colorless next, which I'm excited. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but red's definitely my favorite color in Magic. I just don't know in CDH if it's my favorite color. But again, going to a tournament, I don't know how you feel, obviously with Magda, but I don't think I'm going to a tournament ever without red in it again because
yeah.
it has that I win button.
Still stick to Magda for quite some time. It would take a drastic change in the meta for me not to play that Magda.
They'd have the ban Magda. Yeah.
Or have people play removal spells again.
I just love that Orcish Bowmaster single handedly like made green bad, and then Magda's just like, "Hey, I'm here. I'm
It
not worried
made
about Oppos or Orcishes."
it made us way better. Like people rely so heavily on Bowmaster and ignore all the other stuff. And it's like,
Mhm.
and they have 2 cards in the deck that are like real important to play against me, and nothing else. Like so, I'm like, all right. So I answered his one answer that he has for permanence.
Yeah. No, I love when you're talking about, I'm like, you're not scared about Oppos? You're like, Red has never been scared of fucking creatures. Like, if you come at me with that 2 toughness, like, I'll fucking kill you. But all right, man, that's all the time we have for today. Appreciate like, subscribe, all that stuff down below. Y'all have a good day. See ya.